You are listening to the Hemp Beverage News Podcast, brought to you by the Hemp Beverage Expo, the only trade show in the space connecting brands with the retailers, suppliers, and distributors they need. Join us to hear from the people building it from the ground up.
Welcome. I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, the editor behind hempbeveragenews.com. Today, our guest is Melissa VonderHaar. She's the managing director of Tradeworks and a veteran in the convenience store channel. Tradeworks helps brands navigate distribution channels, build in-store marketing materials tailored to each channel, and develop brand kits for pitching buyers and distributors. Melissa brings sharp insight into the mainstream marketplace and what beverage brands need to understand to compete in it. Let's welcome Melissa to the show.
Yeah, so Tradeworks actually came to be because of CanaDataCon last year / now CanaBev Summit. I went to that event to speak on behalf of the convenience industry. And, for me, it was an eye-opener just because there were so many beer distributors there. Having grown up in the beer industry, it's okay, this is really here. And living in New York, you don't see it quite as much because of our laws.
Yeah.
And also I had been pregnant or breastfeeding for a while. So I wasn't as integrated into the space as a consumer. So I went to that event and it's wow, they're convenience should be moving on this. And that's both how the CSP C-Store Cannabis Board came to be, was because of that event, as well as Tradeworks. On the business side, after that event, I was taking a lot of meetings with the different brands. IC Store Innovations was set up to deal with the needs of mainstream beverage brands. These are folks like Anheuser-Busch, where right now they are talking about December displays. They think very, very far out, because that's how a lot of retailers think, is for established categories. They think very, very far out to come up with their plans, and here are the displays we need. And not to mention also, from a procurement standpoint, you get the best deal because you can order from China and you have the time to do that. But as we sat meeting with these THC beverage brands, I joke, it's not even drinking from a fire hose. You're drinking from the ocean. It's so intense. They're like, well, we need something to go into Total Wine next week. And it's like, oh, okay. For so many of them, they're coming from the, either the tech space or the cannabis space. So they understand D2C very well. They understand the dispensary model very well, but oftentimes they don't understand trade marketing, all that. They know they need it, and they're getting asked for displays, but they're kind of just being very, very responsive. And they might have one marketing person, but that person is in charge of social media and branding, and trade marketing kind of falls into this other, as opposed to a company like Anheuser-Busch. They have a giant trade marketing wing, not to mention a wing of people that handle trade marketing for not just specific channels, but they actually have somebody that's in charge of all of Circle K or all of 7-Eleven. And then they have a separate procurement team. So, and agencies the trade marketing team comes up with a plan. They take it to the agency develops a vision, and then they take it to procurement. They have all of these touch points. And for a startup, you don't have that, but it's actually even more important for, not just emerging brands, but for an emerging category like THC beverage, where the consumer doesn't expect to see it in the store and probably doesn't have a great understanding of what it is and what it does. And it was this kind of perfectly aligned timing. I'm taking these meetings with all of these THC beverage companies. We brought on a new chief strategy officer who had previously, he had cut his teeth in Anheuser-Busch, but then he was the 90th hire at Juul when Juul was just an up-and-comer and vape was very, very new, and they didn't have a procurement team or a trade marketing team. And then he went from Juul to a Kratom shot company. So they really didn't have it. So he had kind of lived that lifestyle of oh, I had all of these great tools at Anheuser-Busch, and then I kept moving to companies where you have fewer and fewer, but you actually need those assets so much more. So he had to get real scrappy. And, as he sat in on these meetings with me, he was like, you know what? We have the people at IC that can do all of this. What if we create, almost like an agency model for trade marketing specifically for emerging brands and emerging categories that allow them on a retainer basis to access the procurement people? We have boots on the ground in China, so we have somebody that can actually go. We talk about the Temu problem, where you see the picture of something, you order it, and what comes to your door is like laughably different. That gets
Uh,
very, very costly if you're ordering 1,000 displays from China, and waiting 12 weeks for them to show up. We have somebody that's there that can go to the factory, get the sample, take the pictures, give her feedback, send it to us for our team to look at and say, yes, this is a go. No, this is not what you want. We have a design engineering team that, if you're doing corrugate, having the designs and the engineering files and taking it to the corrugate provider saves you a bunch of money and a bunch of time, especially for beverage, because corrugate is not necessarily made to hold heavy things. So you have to be really, really specific. We have corrugate partners in the United States that we can get bulk pricing on for these brands. We do strategy pieces, even just figuring out, hey, this is how this distributor works as opposed to this one. Our team has been in the adult beverage space for, some of them 40, 50 years. So they know all of these people. So instead of, these brands don't need to hire a full-time procurement person. They, especially in the current, THC marketplace, hemp
yeah.
marketplace, they don't necessarily need to hire a full-time creative person. They don't necessarily need a full engineering team. And instead, with this service, they get 40 hours of our time a month for a monthly fee. And by the way, if the worst happens and cutbacks start happening because of this ban, they don't have to deal with offloading. So they don't have to fire anybody. They're on a contract basis with us. And it's all kind of set up to be about the cost of an entry level employee. So instead of getting an entry level employee, you get the hours that you need from experts
Yeah.
and take some of that. I think right now, a lot of the brands, when they need talkers or cooler cleans or just the kind of simple signage, they have somebody that's literally going on and Googling it and figuring it out and testing, ordering a sample. And that takes time. Like, and
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you are the only person handling marketing, can you do it? Yes. If you don't know what you're starting from, it's going to take, I always joke, it's like I have not had a math course since I was a junior in high school. So there are math-based things that, yes, I can technically do or learn to do, but somebody that knows that is going to do it 5 times as fast as I can.
Yeah.
So it's the look, we can streamline, save you some money, take some stuff off of your plate and also get you like we understand retail as well. That's the other piece is, and I've talked to a lot of brands too. It's they often will try to take what's on social media and put it on their retail displays and this is a different audience. You got seconds to make that impression. So it's not about volume of words. Like you're not going to explain the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9 on a piece of signage. Like that's just not going to happen. But you do need numerous points of signage in the store for it even to soak in. So that's what TradeWorks does. And of course, the irony is we set it up, wanting to work with a lot of THC brands, and unfortunately, due to the current market, most people are not spending money right now. And that's, as I say, it's like, look, I can't argue otherwise. But
Well,
I
you're
do,
positioned.
yes. And that's what I said. I was like, I want you to know this is a service so that when we get the regulations, because I do think we will, now I don't know if we'll get them before November, but I do think we will. I want you to know this service is out there and we can pick up,
Yeah.
but also like not for nothing. I think the brands that are making investments, at least through this summer, are going to be the ones that retailers remember, right? Because, one of the things I hear from retailers, is that, since the ban came into place, the retailer's like, okay, we want to do a BOGO, or we want to, like, what will you do with us? And they go, oh, well, there's a ban. We're not doing anything. And they're like, well, but you're still asking us to carry your product. Like, and we're still investing in the product. So if we're willing to make the investment, why are you not willing to? And they've said, they're like, no, we remember the brands that say that.
Oh yeah, I've heard that from numerous buyers that I've spoken to, right? In inside cannabis, dispensaries and outside.
Yeah.
That's just a given. Like
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
what is the investment you are making?
I'm
What,
surprised. I'm surprised that more people aren't taking you up on this, only because I see that as marketing dollars, like you said, placing,
yes.
if you
Well, right
know how to
now,
place that and you want to have that sell
sure.
through, so they
Well,
remember you.
I mean, I think it's there right now we're against a clock. And I do think that after kind of the 4th of July boom is when, if we do not have regulations, and like realistically, I don't think we have anything proposed just yet that can get through. And we also know it takes forever for things to get through. And as I always say, I was like, look, on paper, this category, especially low dose hemp beverage, it is a absolute no-brainer. There are very clear ways to do this that will not piss off alcohol. It will not piss off most of marijuana because they are not selling low-dose beverages at dispensaries. Uh, it will not piss off retailers who want to keep selling this. And there is consumer support behind it. And you can tax it and it can go through the alcohol framework. And there will be some hemp people that are not thrilled about that. But like, there is
Yeah.
a very clear, responsible, known way to do this. On paper, it makes all the sense, but so does paying our TSA agents. And look at what we've done with that. Like, we're
Oh, yeah.
not dealing with a Congress that can handle even the easiest of
I
tasks.
know, I know,
So,
I know. So I just want to clarify, just because it is a
sure.
different term than what I'm used to hearing,
Yeah.
trade marketing. Like to me,
Yeah.
that sounds like trade, like
Yeah.
B2B. But
Yes.
what is that?
Trade marketing marketing is kind of that big umbrella term for anything that markets the brand. Trade marketing gets into the specific of it is for at retail, at it is where the product is sold. It is at the trade channel. So trade refers to convenience versus big box versus grocery versus on premise. We work in all of those channels. So it is really retail, it is point of sale materials, it is kind of for where the products actually go into the hands of consumers.
Oh, okay. So you are working convenience, grocery, mass, all those.
Liquor, on premise, yes.
Oh, and
We
on
do,
premise too.
yep, we do, yeah, we do all of it.
So basically, they could come to you and just get
They could
all
come
these
to us and say,
different
"Hey, we are, I'll give you an example of a brand we're working with. They're launching, primarily in convenience, but they also have a distributor that does some on-premise. So they want to have assets that match, that where the branding matches, but the asset itself, and so the point of sale material or the promotional piece is appropriate for the channel. And so, we will come up with kind of a game plan and a messaging plan of, okay, for convenience, we think you should have cooler clings, shelf talkers. Eventually, you'll probably want a floor display because you have multi-packs going in versus on premise. You could probably still use the cooler clings, but also do coasters and maybe, a little, menu trifold, but kind of coming up with the plan of, hey, here's what assets go where. We will source them, we will print them, if you need us to kit them so that your distributor literally just opens the box and goes, aha, this goes to convenience, this goes to on premise, we can do that as well. And that's just one example. We also help with trade show booths, with kind of game plans for trade shows. We have helped with, a kind of distributor incentive decks and plans. It's a really long, wide list that is constantly growing, kind of based on, hey, what's your need? And we will tell you if that's something our team can execute on.
Wow, I tell you, it's a whole different ball game than what we're dealing with in the dispensary.
Yeah.
Hearing you talk like this, it's
Yes.
crazy all the ways
Yeah.
they need to think about it. I honestly don't know
Yeah.
why somebody wouldn't hire you guys.
It's budget. It
I
is
know, of
budget.
course, and that's the biggest problem in this industry. But like
Yes.
you said, now that money's opening up, hopefully things will,
Are you seeing money open up?
well, only if well, it would be
Yeah.
more in the
Yeah.
medical track because of 280E will open things up. But then, if the end of
Right.
June, if the laws flip and they allow rec, then that opens up 280E to rec. But and then a lot of the rec and the medical people also
Yeah.
have their hemp beverages.
Yes.
That's what they're doing. So that would open up money into the hemp beverage.
Yes. It's opening up some money. But also, and again, it's my suspicion is, realistically, it's May. And it takes time to get an asset in the store.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I from what my understanding is after kind of July into August, beverage in mainstream retail, it is a summer boom. This is Christmas in July.
Right.
So they will sell, 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 sell through the summer. But then they're going to start getting nervous about having inventory in hand. And I know that I know that all the contracts say, oh, if these become illegal, the brand will buy it back. But, at least convenience has been through this before with vape. If that
Mhm.
law goes illegal, or goes, if the ban goes through, I would imagine there is a not insignificant number of brands that will file for bankruptcy. Uh, and
Yeah.
so they're not, it's retailers are not banking on, you know, on
Then they're not going to be responsible once they file for
exactly,
bankruptcy. They're not going to
exactly.
be
And and convenience retailers have been through this with vape. Like this is exactly what happened when the
Oh,
FDA, and now that was not an expected thing. FDA kind of knee-jerked banned flavors. And so that was not something that necessarily people saw coming, but there were a ton of vape companies that filed for bankruptcy. And so the retailers were left holding a ton of inventory that was illegal to sell. And so nobody wants to be kind of caught in that situation. And so I would expect certainly by Labor Day, you are not going to see a lot of distributors or retailers bringing stuff on. And in fact, I mean, that's Target has basically said as much too. It's a
yeah.
look, we will discount and try to get rid of whatever we have so that we have no inventory come November 12th, unless the law changes. So, you know, brands are not going to be investing past this summer. And I wouldn't advise them to.
Right, right. So
And I've
you're
already told my company, I was like, look, if we don't have if we don't have an extension or a law by time our, we have some contracts with THC companies that go through the end of the summer. I was like, they won't renew, and I wouldn't advise them to renew.
right, right. God
I
knows
would
what.
rather they come back when we get the laws through, but
Right,
that is going to be what it's going to be.
right, right.
So, it just kind of is what it is. And unfortunately, kind of the Schedule 3 stuff came through not really in time for us to benefit from that piece of it, which
Right,
is
because
fine.
it's gonna take time for that to.
And not for nothing. There are a lot of, we do a lot within the nicotine space. We do a lot within the functional beverage space. We have a lot of caffeine alternatives, alternative delivery companies that there are plenty of brands out there that we are working with. Like we're fine.
Yeah,
It is not a THC exclusive,
yeah,
service. It just
yeah,
happens to be I have a massive knowledge set and experience in that space. And we're continuing to invest in it because we do believe that this, one way or another,
yeah,
laws are going to get through.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. Okay, holding pattern there. So then I guess just kind of going down some of the, insights into the market and things like
Yeah.
that. Unless I feel like this
No,
is
no, I think you got a good handle
good.
on
Okay, okay,
TradeWorks. Yeah.
okay, great, wonderful. So how should brands think about category management, or how C stores are thinking about category management?
Yeah.
You know, they have a tight shelf space
Yes.
compared to these big stores. How many brands are they typically carrying right now? What are the types? Is it sodas
Yeah.
versus seltzers? That kind
Yeah. Yeah. So, data is still very, very new to this category. I don't think that's any huge surprise. Retailers, in terms of how many SKUs they're carrying, that is a wide gamut.
of.
That said, most every convenience retailer I've spoken with, they'll start with a set trial group, whatever that is. I think Circle K started with about 10 SKUs. And
Okay.
then they grow, every single one of them ends up growing it because they are justifying their space on the shelf. So, and that is really, really common in convenience, whether it's a category or a brand, they look at it as earn your space. And that's, I'll do a plug. That's a tenet of what we do at IC Store Innovations is we try to create displays that go in spaces that previously there weren't product, so we have suction cup racks that can effectively be an entire shelf facing. So it holds like 10 to 12 products. And we always say, look, if they're telling you they don't have space, say, hey, I'll invest in this display, and if it sells, then we've earned our spot on the shelf. And that's, whether it's, hey, give us the spot on the shelf and let us earn it, or hey, we will invest in a display, and then if it sells, give us the spot on the shelf.
Okay. You
Um,
mean like they hang off the shelf or something? Like
yeah,
they.
so it's a suction cup rack that goes on the door.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And those are very popular in convenience because it also, when you talk about a store that's, under 5,000 square feet with 3,000 SKUs that people are in there for 2 minutes, you
Mhm.
have to catch their eye to break through that clutter. So, that's the suction cup racks don't just add space. They also, it's a disruptor. It draws eyeballs. So does shelf talker. There's a lot of ways to do that. And that goes back to the trade marketing piece. It's really important in convenience because people are not browsing. People are not, they're in and out. They're spending 15 seconds looking at the cooler door. Seven of
Yeah.
those are finding the product that they came in to find. So you just have very, very little time. And so something like a suction cup rack has been proven not just to improve the sales of the brand that's in it, but in fact, everything that's in the door because it's a disruptor. So the person, instead of 15 seconds, they might spend 20 seconds because it's, oh, what's that? That's different. And so they spend a little bit more time at the door and it grows the basket. In terms of what is selling at convenience, so Nielsen's data is relatively new, but I believe they found the majority of the sales are coming from three types of products in THC beverage. Sodas being the top one, um, seltzers being next, and mocktails being the other. And that makes sense because that's about most of what is out there. The others are tea or water or all other was like 20%, which encompasses a lot because that's just kind of the flavors that we're seeing. But I did find it interesting that soda was the majority in convenience specifically, which actually makes a lot of sense because soda
Yeah.
is one of the top selling items within convenience.
Right.
But most retailers are very willing to try stuff. At this point, I don't know that they've gotten down into the nitty gritty of the subcategories within THC beverage.
Mhm.
Right now, effectively, THC beverage, they're kind of viewing it as a subcategory within beer alcohol. And so, in terms of category management or how you're looking at it, from a convenience retailer, they're looking at it like another age-gated product. And so they'll use the kind of the same playbook of, hey, what signage is out there? What promotions can we offer? How do we draw eyeballs to it? And I think most convenience retailers are realizing that it's a category they have to call out. They can't just throw it on the shelves. Though also, we did Mapco, Major Management, which is a large retailer. Mapco is one of the big brands. Their category manager for alcohol said, everybody says you have to call it out and you can't just put it on the shelves and it'll sell. He's like, for us, we put it on the shelves and it sold. We didn't have to do much to support it. So
That's showing consumer awareness.
yeah, yeah. And he's like, now obviously once we did start promoting it, it sold even better. So, I for brands that are looking to get into retail at this particular unique time, if you come in not just with a brand plan, but a category plan and say, I want to be a category captain, so I'd like to provide the signage that says THC beverages here. I'd like to provide some educational materials about what it is. Um, you know, and obviously you can put a little branding on that, but frame it as category captain. And that happens within beer and soda. There's a reason that Coke and Pepsi and Red Bull, like providing a home for that category makes a difference. And again, it is something that retailers will remember. It's okay, this brand came in thinking like me, the retailer, as opposed to just, hey, get mine on the shelf, get mine on the shelf. So
Yeah. That's a common theme I hear. And how about shots? When I talk to
yeah.
a couple liquor store people, they're saying shots are just really increasing
Yeah, yeah.
popularity.
So I know that the retailers that have brought shots in convenience, it has done very, very, very well. I know others are concerned about theft with shots, um, as well at which is why a lot of them will want to put it on the counter or on the back bar. But in convenience, the counter is literally the most like it is the most valuable real estate in the store. It is
Yeah.
the one spot that if somebody walks into the store, they are definitely going to the counter. And it's not just home for age-gated products. It is home for 5-hour energy shots. It's for a lot of them, it's home for vapor. They will have vapor displays up there. If a retailer is doing THC edibles, that's where they're going to go too. And at a certain point, that counter, it's finite space. It is finite space and the most valuable. So, if I were a brand with shots, there are clear data points from liquor, from other channels where this is doing very well. I would have an answer to the theft question, as
Mm,
well as an answer to if they say, if your answer is, my answer to theft is put it on the counter in a non-self-service display, and you need the second answer for if they say, either we have a clean counter policy or there is no space on our counter. So same deal, we always look at IC, where is there space to be had? So we have some displays, or at least some renders we have some displays that we've engineered out. We haven't produced yet that actually hang off the back bar. So it doesn't take space from tobacco, but it is still not self-service. And it answers that question or that concern of, I don't have space on the counter and I can't have this self-service. Something that hangs on the back bar.
that's your answer. Like, come
Yes.
in and say, these are the things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I know, in fact, we did a render for liquor for this as well, for one that could, it was actually a full freestanding display that went behind the counter and had the shot display on top, but underneath had storage so you could store boxes and boxes of shots, so that because that particular liquor store was running out of the shots so quickly, they needed to have access to them. So it's just kind of get creative and think about, hey, where is there space? What is the answer for if they say it can't be self-service and it can't be on the counter? Uh,
Yeah.
is
Great.
it's the push back on it, and you can it's and bring the data. It's this came up for the CSP C-store Cannabis Board. One of the things we worked on was a THC playbook where the retailers kind of went through, here are our checklists. And one of the things that was brought up was, hey, asking for sales data is too vague because so much of this is so new that if you only have D2C data, that doesn't mean anything to us. if you don't have same store sales data, that doesn't mean anything to us because you could have, if people are only buying it once and never coming back, then you
Mm.
have not earned your spot on the shelf. It's not just about trial, it's about repeat. So they really encourage to ask for same store sales data going back 6 months or more, and
Mm.
whether that's inconvenience or not, but it's the, hey, if whatever you can do to show this doesn't just get a one-time purchase, it grows. Um,
Mm.
so, my advice for shots would be the two part of have an answer for, you know, it can't be self-service and it can't be on the counter, as well as, hey, here is some same store sales data that shows what you're getting from this.
Wow, great advice. And it's also great advice as far as don't take no for an answer, meaning think of the solution. This
Yes.
is how brands have to think.
Yes.
And it's off of TradeWorks. It's great. I love
Yeah.
it. So I remember a long time ago, or when we talked a
Yeah.
couple of years ago or whatever, you gave me some stats on how convenience stores are masters at age gating. Like there was
Oh,
some,
yeah.
what is that again? Like you said, they're,
So they sell the majority. So they sell, I believe the figure, actually, let me pull up my thing because I'd rather give you exact. Convenience stores in general, they don't sell just one age-gated product, right? Liquor stores, they sell liquor, they sell alcohol. Grocery stores mostly sell alcohol. They have tobacco, some of them still do, but they don't actually sell that much
yeah.
tobacco anymore, especially convenience stores sell all of it. They sell, sorry, trying to do two things at once. Tobacco, cigarettes are still their number one in-store selling item by far. In fact, when the National Association of Convenience Stores does their kind of overall in-store performance, they share a version with cigarettes and a version without because cigarettes are on the decline. And so, because they're such a big piece of in store sales, they manage to skew the entire year for the entire, like, if you take cigarettes out of it, in store sales are going up. But because cigarettes go down and because they are such a giant piece of the overall sales, it makes everything go down. That's how important it is. Why is it? So, and the other piece I always find interesting is that convenience uh sold tobacco. They sold tobacco when it was still 18 in most states. So they had to know not just to card 21 for beer, they had to know 18 for tobacco products. And often it was constantly switching around. Um, so, it's,
Similar to THC drinks in different states and all the different laws in the
yeah, well, most everyone has set it as 21. At
oh
this point,
yeah, as far as age.
yeah, as far as age gating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one of the other stats, and I'm gonna find this, sorry. Convenience checks more IDs daily than the TSA. That's
That's what it was. That's
that's
what it
one of
was.
the best stats.
That's a
Um,
good
but
stat.
here, so cigarettes are the top driver of in-store sales, and C-stores account for over 80% of cigarette sales in the United States. 80%. OTP, which is other tobacco products, so Zyn, smokeless, vape, cigars, they are the third highest driver of in-store sales. And beer is the fourth highest driver of in-store sales. And convenience accounts for over 40% of alcohol sales in the United States. And why that's impressive is that there are a ton of states where convenience cannot sell beer, cannot sell wine. So even with limited sales, and NACS, National Association of Convenience Stores, shows that 51% of sales in a convenience store are age-gated products. Like
Mm,
this is what they
oh,
do.
yeah, 51%. That's huge.
Yes, it is. So they are, the channel takes a lot of grief about not doing well at age gating. There is simply not data that supports that. The FDA goes in and does inspections all the time. And if you fail an inspection, you risk losing your tobacco license, which when so much of your sales come through that, like, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that don't do well with age gating. It is 150,000 stores across the United States with high turnover rates for the employees. It is a very high turnover channel. So,
Mhm.
of course, there are going to be times where that doesn't happen. But that happens in liquor, that happens in grocery, that happens all over the place. So the notion that because a liquor store is quote unquote 21 and up only, and you should be checking an ID every time, and that somehow makes it safer than convenience, like I just don't buy it. And I really don't buy it when it comes to smoke shops and vape shops. Because when those 21 and up laws are passed for hemp beverages, for hemp sales, that means vape shops and smoke shops get to sell as well. And I'm sorry, there is just absolutely no data that shows that a smoke shop or a vape shop does a better job at age gating than convenience stores. And the other piece I'll point out is that the convenience industry actually has invested in and developed its own age gating software. It is called TruAge, Truage. It was developed by the National Association of Convenience Stores, and it allows you to scan somebody's ID. It only takes the date and I think the state that it's in. It does not store any privacy related data, but it allows you to seamlessly check somebody's ID and have yes, you can sell this. Um,
Oh,
so, for example, one of the retailers I work with out of Minneapolis who's been doing hemp beverages from the get-go, they have 100%, they have a demonstrated 100% compliance rate on age gating because by using TruAge, their system, you cannot sell those products. You cannot ring it up without that. Then you have a printout of, and I think it's probably similar to what happens in dispensary where they do have so much oversight. If you get audited, you can literally print out here are all the age gated sales. Here is the birthday of the person that purchased it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really impressive. And it's such good technology that like the DC airport uses it for TSA. I think California is using it for DMV. Like it is really, really impressive software. I know some sports stadiums have put it in. And I'm not the expert in that technology, but I know NACS like is very, very proud of it and wants to talk about it. Alcohol and tobacco companies helped fund this because they recognized age gating is just hugely important for this channel. But, it goes back to what other channel has invested to develop its own age gating technology, except perhaps dispensary, like,
Yeah,
and because
yeah.
they have to.
Right, right. Well, it's
So,
important to the trust and whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. So yeah, so I think I just have two last questions. Is what are the popular case packs that are
Yeah.
working? Okay.
Yeah, so it's trial sizes. And this is actually across the board. So in terms of pack sizes right now, and this is I believe it's across the board. I don't think it's just convenience. It is four packs are still the most popular, but singles are close to that. And those two dominate. Like six packs are very, very little. All other is very, very little. It is still a consumer that is in trial mode. And so they don't want to invest in larger pack sizes. That said, they will spend a lot on the basket. So, like, it's not necessarily that they're only buying one four pack or one single, but they're not yet at the place where, beer, you can do a case of beer or whatever. They're not there yet. But trial is still the name of the game for this space.
How about dosing? What is the yeah.
Yeah. And again, would you like convenience specific or across the board?
I guess across the board.
So 10 milligrams make up 51%. and those are up 200. Let me first say, everything is up. Every dosage is growing, according to Nielsen at least. And Nielsen will be the first to admit this is new baby data. So like this is partially just getting a baseline. So I don't necessarily look at triple digit growth, but more so what's growing by the most. 10 milligrams are 51% of what's being purchased.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
5 milligrams are 22%. Those are only up 81%. Um, 10 plus milligrams only account for 5%, but they are up 618%. So the state, I think it's, there's a couple things going on here, with dosing. And it's one, the expensive part of a THC beverage isn't the THC. It's the liquid and the can. So you're on pricing. I see this when I go to Total Wine. It's, you know, pennies on the, like not quite pennies on the dollar, but it's even I who like understand it, and generally speaking, I like to have 3 milligram beverages around because if I'm having a party, if I'm having a barbecue, 3 milligrams is what I'd like to drink so that I can keep going with the people that are drinking alcohol. If I'm doing 10 milligrams, I cannot do that. But even for me, when I am purchasing, it's like, well, shit. Like I can buy like a 4 pack of 3 milligram, or I can buy a 4 pack of 10 milligram and it's like $2 more. So I
Yeah.
think it's partially that we are not pricing correctly and the consumer is not yet fully educated on this. And it's really, even if you are, it's really hard to look at that price, especially in today's economy, and go, yeah, I'm going to go for the 3 milligram.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's why shots are doing well also.
yes.
I've been looking at that. I've been talking to liquor stores about that, and I've been talking to manufacturers, and they're all saying exactly it doesn't, it's the manufacturing cost. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
not
And the shipping, the beverage is expensive to ship. It is,
so
yeah.
it's so I guess it's the liquid you're saying is
It's
more
the liquid, and the shipping is more
the shipping.
expensive than the THC is right
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Um,
So that's a problem.
so I think that's a big part of it. And the other piece is that we know tolerance builds with cannabis. So there are people, when like I have realized, oh, yeah, I can do a 10 milligram drink and then switch to a 5 and have a few like my tolerance is higher than when I first started doing THC beverages. And then I look at somebody like my husband who is a daily flower consumer, and he like anything under 50 milligrams, he doesn't feel like
I know,
he
I
is
know.
one. So, I think a few things can be true at the same time, and it's the cost, the education, and there is some tolerance building that's gonna happen. Um, but
I
I also don't, I look at that data and it doesn't say to me that if we have a 5 milligram cap or even a 4 milligram cap federally, that it kills the category. It won't. This is a category that innovates, and it's also, guess what? If you have, you know, 4 or 5 4 milligram drinks, that's the same as 2 10 milligram drinks. And we're going to have to adjust the pricing. And like right now, brands and retailers are enjoying just outstanding margins. And that's great. But that is not the reality of a regulated category. Like I can tell you, tobacco, cigarettes, it's an average of like 14% gross profit margin at retail. Yeah.
I
Because of taxes.
oh,
It is a heavily, heavily, heavily taxed item. Um, and alcohol is
oh,
not
right. Once
low.
this goes over to under
Yeah,
tobacco or alcohol.
once there is taxes and requirements and three-tier, you're not going to enjoy the margin. And brands know this, right? Because they started in D2C, and I guarantee the margins they were making in D2C are nowhere near what they're making on a retail. But that is how you grow a category. And not to mention, if you're going to have an adult use category in this country, it's probably not going D2C. Like we don't do that in tobacco. It's
Right.
not allowed in most tobacco. It's really, really difficult to do in alcohol. There are a lot of provisions for alcohol, and that is what it is. Like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, D2C, maybe delivery,
Yeah, that and that's kind of so like DoorDash could work kind of
but not marketplaces, right?
yeah, yeah. So it's something like edibles might work. It's kind of that same day delivery mode through a third party. But it's not, so you can get some specialty alcohol delivered. I've done that, but it's like you have to be home. If you, the person who purchased it, are not there to show your ID when you sign for it, which that is it's a very expensive service through USPS or UPS, right? Because their guy
Oh,
technically may
right,
be
right,
delivering and not being able to deliver the product. Ordering online, I,
right. How do you monitor? How do you
right,
gauge the
right,
event? Yeah.
right.
Okay. All right. And then distribution. I know that TradeWorks also does distribution. Are there
Well,
certain,
we work with distributor, like we understand the distributor
I
the
mean,
model.
oh, yeah, right. You're not
Yeah,
warehousing or
no,
doing.
no.
Okay, so you're just going to help them navigate the,
Yeah, yes.
yeah, and
Yeah. And we can warehouse, yes, we do have some warehousing capabilities, but a beer, so most of the time the beverages are going through the beer distributor network. That is different than what we do. Those are long-term established. That's part of the three-tier system. So, we happen to know a lot of the beer distributors, so we can say, hey, this is the kind of incentive this distributor likes working with. What you
yeah.
see with distributors, especially for a new category that is a small piece of what they're doing right now. It's these distributors are handling hundreds of brands, hundreds and hundreds. And they're very, very good at it. But if you want them to be giving love and attention to your brand, you're going to want to come up with some kind of incentive program. You want to make it as easy and desirable for them to push your brand above. A lot of them might have 10, 20, 30 plus other THC beverage brands. How do you get them to focus on yours? So more of what we do is help brands navigate that.
That's huge.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
that distribution channel is a big monster, a
Yes.
beast. Like you to
Yes.
have somebody already, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So
Mhm.
then the very last question. So yeah, that's great. Oh, are you in favor of the three-tier system, or I know the big question out there, or
Yeah.
I hear people talking about it.
Yeah, it's controversial.
It's controversial. Or, but I mean, is convenience, so it sounds like convenience is not tied specifically to three-tier, that it's more just regular distribution and warehouses.
So convenience depending. So for alcohol, three-tier is a requirement. It's a requirement. What I always say, there's two things I will say about three-tier. One, with convenience, whether it's required or not, it's 150,000 stores. 90,000 of those are single stores. You have to go through a distributor because no brand is going to call on 90,000 single stores
Oh,
themselves.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
not going direct to all of them. Whereas these distributors, whether it's three-tier or someone like McLean, like tobacco is not required three-tier. Almost every brand that succeeds goes through a distributor. That's just, it's the reality of the channel. And so even retailers, a major retailer I work with does not want to see hemp beverage go through three-tier, but they would effectively be going three-tier because I was like, would you ever buy direct? And she's like, no, I just want to be able to choose the distributor. Whereas alcohol, you know, it's pretty you some of the choice goes out of it.
Mhm.
So, my point is always if you're fighting against three-tier, you're not necessarily understanding convenience because it would be really, really hard to go direct for
Oh,
convenience
okay.
because
That's what
the
I
way the
thought.
channel is worked. The other piece is regulatory reality is there is huge concerns about the types of products that are going out there, access to children, safety. Three-tier has been going for over 100 years, and it has made alcohol so safe in the United States. If you go to Europe, there is a big problem with counterfeit type products, and that's because there is not a three-tier law. So when you're talking to regulators who are worried, this goes back to my point of have an answer. don't take no for an answer. Have a solution in mind. Three tier for this category provides a solution that you have historic data on from the alcohol side. Not to mention, there were a lot of alcohol brands that pushed for the hemp beverage ban because hemp beverages are getting put on the beer shelves, it's getting put on the alcohol shelves. However, they don't have to play by the same rules. They don't have to go three tier. They are not taxed. They can pay shelf slotting fees. So you can pay to have the space on the shelf. Alcohol, because of federal laws, cannot do that. So three tier gives you an answer for regulatory concerns as well as for the alcohol brands who are saying, wait a minute, this is not fair. This is an age-gated beverage that doesn't have any of our rules. So if you're like, I understand why a brand would prefer not three tier. I understand why some retailers would prefer not three tier. Personally, I would prefer to have the category exist. Like there are sacrifices that are going to have to be made. And this is one that like makes a lot of sense where I'm standing.
Why do people not want three tier? What's
There, I mean, look, are our alcohol regulations perfect? Absolutely not. We are
oh,
still undoing stuff from prohibition. So I think the argument is three tier is not a perfect system. We should create a perfect system. Or three tier, candidly, some brands will not survive three tier. But also, there are 1,000 brands out there right now. They're not all going to survive a regulated rated space. Like they just won't. And some of them shouldn't because they are high dose synthetic products. Some retailers like being able to buy direct. It's been because effectively, three tier means there's three different people all wanting margins. There's the brand, there's the wholesaler, there's the retailer. By going two tier,
oh,
you eliminate.
from a business perspective,
Yes.
I just wasn't sure what that whole argument was. Okay. And then the last question, very last, is what trade show opportunities do you see for beverage brands to be participating in?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What trade show opportunities
Oh,
do you see beverage brands should be
yeah.
participating?
So, you know, having done some of the cannabis facing shows, I understand why when I would talk to THC beverage brands about the cost of doing a convenience show, like the National Association of Convenience Stores or some of the CSP events, their jaws drop because it tends to be about three times as expensive as what doing a cannabis show is. That said, a lot of the mainstream retail events have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. They know how to get ROI out of it. For example, the CSP C-Store Cannabis Forum, everybody that attended, every brand that sponsored that got 15 speed dating sessions with the retailers. And they got to choose the retailers that they were speed dating with. And they got 15 minutes of one-on-one time with those retailers. It was also a consciously very small event where it was a max of 50% brands or sponsors to 50% retailers. And in fact, I think we had more retailers than brands there. So they got, even if you didn't have those speed dating sessions, you were getting FaceTime, real
Yeah.
quality FaceTime with those retailers. So you cannot do, if you are going to play in mainstream retail, you cannot do every event. You just can't. Like even some of the biggest CPG companies do not do every event because they are very expensive to do. You have to actually, and like versus cannabis, my read on it is a lot of the events are fairly low cost and so it's pretty easy to just show up to everything,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
without much of a plan, and that's fine. And I hope that worked for people. But my argument is instead of looking for quantity, look at quality and come up with the plan of, hey, these are the channels I'm really focused on. These are the events that I think I'm going to get the most ROI out of. And I can tell you every brand, and I talked to a lot of brands before the CSP C-Store Cannabis Forum that said, they were like, look, with the ban coming, this is a really huge expense. I'm not sure if it's worth it. And every single one of those brands came up that did do it came up to me after and said, I am so happy I did this. I have not been to an event like this before, that we don't have this in cannabis where there is that FaceTime. Now, National Association of Convenience Stores, that's a massive trade show, but you are seeing you have the opportunity to meet with virtually every convenience retailer out there. So it's a different, it's kind of the
Yeah.
flip side of that. And if you're doing convenience, my advice is the NAC show and pick one or two smaller events to do. But there's also, there's National Products Expo West, there's the National Restaurant Association. If I were a THC beverage brand specifically, I would, for me, if you're doing convenience, NACS is what you have to do. Unfortunately, it is fully sold out for this year. However, there are still ways to participate. So I would encourage brands, they can reach out to me. I'm happy to chat about that. There are opportunities because there were brands that did that last year. Because by time they approved THC beverage or THC companies to attend, there were
Yeah.
no booths, but there were ways that they could participate and also figure out what they're going to do the following year. But so I would encourage for convenience, NACS, but then also look at some of the opposite of going inch wide and a mile deep. Like, hey, it's an event that's only going to have 50 to 60 retailers, but I'm going to get to spend time with every single one of them. CSP Informa does an outstanding job with that. And they
Oh, convenience. Yeah.
Convenience store petroleum.
Okay.
It's everybody just calls it CSP. It's a
Oh,
leading B2B publication. The other thing for any of the events that I would encourage them to ask is, are you going to allow sampling if it's in a sample friendly space? Because that was something I really, really pushed for at the Cannabis Forum. And it moves like it was so cool. We did a THC beverage happy hour and watching kind of the light bulb go off of, oh, this is what this does. This is not this scary thing. And also seeing people like, oh, this is something you can do in a social setting. It was really, really cool and really special. Not every event is going to allow it, as I'm sure state laws vary, and also hotels have different policies. But it's worth asking the question. But so that's where I would look at convenience facing. But that said, that I know National Restaurant Association show is happening. I think it's wrapping up right now. They also allowed sampling, and I know last year they had a hemp beverage pavilion. They had content. I would be asking the questions of what's the sampling? What is the attendance looking like in terms of a split of retailers to brands or distributors to brands? What is the networking opportunity? What is the sampling opportunity? And is there going to be THC content? But looking at that, and then also at the end of the day, you got to look at your budget and be strategic about it. You cannot, as you enter mainstream retail, you can't do every event. We don't do every event.
yeah.
It's very, very expensive. The other thing I would strongly advise, I know in cannabis, it's really a thing that people don't go to the event. They hang out at the bar. They don't pay to go to the event. They hang out at the bar. And this happened at the CSPC Store Cannabis Forum. And I can tell you, the sales team is not happy and these are not people that they will prioritize working with
Mm.
in the future. This is not something that is kosher or okay at mainstream events. Something like the NAC show, yeah, you can probably get away with that because it's such a huge event. But at some of these smaller events, we knew exactly who was sitting at that bar that did not pay for tickets. And we actually told the retailers, like, please don't spend time with these people. They didn't invest in the event.
Yeah.
Like, there is some growing up that has to happen. And like, again, I have some sympathy given the environment that's going on, but this is your chance to make an impression. And that's not a good impression, both for the events companies who are investing in a space that is not certain, and for the retailers who want to see, they come to these events because it is a chance for them to learn. And they understand that learning is happening because of the brands who invested in being there. So it is not a good look to show up and try to sample at a bar when there are brands who have paid to be there.
Great way to end. That was perfect. Oh my.